A passport isn't just a booklet. It's your key to the world. But what happens when that key is snatched away, not by a thief, but by the very person paid to check it? At Chicago O'Hare, Gate B12, a gate agent with a cruel streak holds the power. She sees a young black woman in sweats, judges her, and with a single, tearing sound, destroys her passport. It's an act of malice, a power trip. But this agent just made the worst mistake of her career, because the woman she just stranded isn't a college kid. She's the disguised FAA inspector sent to investigate her, and the karma that's coming is non-stop. The air in Chicago O'Hare's Terminal 5 was a familiar, stale perfume of Cinnabon, jet fuel, and human anxiety. It was 6 p.m. on a Tuesday, and the terminal was a frantic sea of passengers rushing to make their international connections. This was the pressure cooker, the place where tempers frayed, and the thin veneer of customer service was scraped raw. And that was exactly why she was here. To anyone who bothered to look, Serena Jenkins was just another face in the crowd. She appeared to be in her mid-20s, wearing charcoal grey joggers, a matching hoodie from her alma mater, Howard University, and a pair of well-worn sneakers. Her hair was pulled back into a simple puff, and oversized headphones were clamped over her ears, though no music was playing. She was, by design, forgettable. She was just another black girl traveling, a demographic she knew from statistical data and personal experience was disproportionately targeted for random security checks and enhanced screenings. But Serena Jenkins was not 25. She was 34, and she was not a student. She was the Regional Director of Compliance for the Federal Aviation Administration. Her headphones were off, her senses sharp. She was a hunter, and O'Hare was her territory. Her division had received an alarming spike in complaints, 114 in the last 60 days alone, all directed at Global Air's operations at ORD. The complaints were disturbingly similar. Allegations of racial profiling, verbal abuse from staff, and arbitrary security fees being charged at the gate. The complaints specifically mentioned Gate B12, the primary departure point for the lucrative London Heathrow route. So, Serena had booked a priority ticket on Global Air 901, right in the eye of the storm. Her boss, Director Holloway, had been blunt. "Serena, this isn't a normal audit. Don't send a team. Go yourself. Go undercover. I want to know what it feels like to be a passenger at that gate." She'd been observing for an hour, blending into the organized chaos by the boarding area. The gate agents for GA 901 were already at the podium, a man and a woman. The man, whose tag read Mark Thompson, seemed flustered and overwhelmed, his tie askew. The woman was the one who held Serena's attention. Her name tag read Karen Miller. She was a thin woman in her late 40s, with a severe blonde bob that looked sharp enough to cut glass. She operated her terminal with a series of sharp, angry stabs of her finger. She hadn't smiled once. Serena watched as an elderly Indian couple approached the desk, clearly confused about the boarding process. Karen didn't look up. "Excuse me, ma'am," the man said, his voice hesitant. "Does our group—" "Boarding hasn't started," Karen snapped, her eyes still on her screen. "Yes, but we need assistance with a wheelchair." Karen finally looked up, her face a mask of profound irritation. "Then you should have arranged that before getting to the gate. This isn't a full-service concierge. Go back to check-in." "But they told us to come here," the wife said, her voice trembling. "And I'm telling you to go back. You're blocking the desk. Next!" The couple shuffled away, looking defeated and humiliated. Serena's jaw tightened. She discreetly tapped her phone, which was in her breast pocket, held by a lanyard under her hoodie. The audio recorder was now active. 10 minutes later, Mark Thompson made the announcement for pre-boarding. Serena watched Karen's posture change. She stood up straighter, a general preparing for battle. She seemed to relish the moment of power, the second she got to decide who passed and who didn't. Serena watched as a young white family with 3 loud children breezed through. Karen gave them a saccharine sweet, "Have a wonderful flight." She watched as a businessman in a tailored suit had his ticket scanned. Karen actually flirted with him. "Business class, I see. Enjoy the champagne, sir." Then a black man in a sharp suit, carrying a leather briefcase, stepped up. Karen's smile vanished. "Passport," she demanded. He handed it over. She scrutinized it, holding it up to the light, bending it, running her thumb over the photo page. "Is there a problem?" he asked, his voice smooth and professional. "This looks a little worn," Karen said, her voice dripping with suspicion. "I travel for a living. It's called using it." Karen sniffed, her eyes narrowing. She spent an agonizing 30 seconds typing his name into the system, comparing the screen to his face multiple times. Finally, with a put-upon sigh, she stamped his boarding pass and shoved it back at him without a word. Serena felt the familiar, cold knot in her stomach. This was it. This was the rot she'd been sent to find. "Now boarding, priority group 1. Mark's voice crackled over the PA. Serena took a deep, steadying breath. She unzipped her hoodie slightly, ensuring her phone's microphone was clear. She pulled her rolling carry-on and stepped into the line, positioning herself right behind a man who was already arguing about his bag size. She kept her head down, her headphones on, affecting the bored, slightly intimidated look of a young traveler. She was next. Serena stepped up to the podium. She kept her eyes lowered, as if unsure, and quietly handed her passport and boarding pass to Karen Miller. Karen snatched them. Her eyes, a pale, cold blue, raked over Serena from head to toe. The look was a comprehensive, instantaneous dismissal. The worn sneakers, the college hoodie, the simple hair. In that 1-second glance, Karen had tried, judged, and convicted Serena of being unworthy. "Take your headphones off," Karen snapped. "I need to speak to you." Serena slowly pulled the headphones down, letting them rest around her neck. "Sorry, is there a problem?" she asked, pitching her voice to sound young and nervous. "There might be." Karen's acrylic nail tapped on Serena's passport photo. "Serena Jenkins, is that you?" "Yes, Mom." Karen held the passport up, angling it under the harsh fluorescent light. "Looks new." I had to renew it this year, yes," Serena replied. "Uh-huh. And where are you going?" "London. It's on the boarding pass." Karen's eyes flashed. "I know what the boarding pass says. I'm asking you, what's the purpose of your trip? Business or pleasure?" This was irregular. This was not a gate agent's job. It was CBP's. But Serena knew the script. This was the soft interrogation, the "do you belong here" test. A graduation trip. For my master's," Serena lied smoothly. Karen's lips pursed into a thin, skeptical line. "A master's. Right. And who paid for this ticket? This is a priority seat." Serena's internal temperature rose, but her voice remained steady. "My parents. It was a gift." "Must be nice." Karen ran the passport under the scanner. It beeped, accepting it. The screen in front of her would have flashed green, verified. But Karen didn't look at the screen. She was looking at Serena. She wasn't processing a passenger. She was exercising power. "This photo page," Karen said, rubbing her thumb over the laminate. "It feels off, a little bubbled. You people are always getting such good fakes these days." The line behind Serena was growing. A man in a business suit sighed impatiently. Can we move this along? Karen shot him a venomous look. Sir, I am ensuring the safety of this flight. You'll wait. She turned back to Serena. The mask of customer service was gone, replaced by open contempt. I'm going to have to deny you boarding. Serena's head snapped up. She dropped the scared student act instantly. Her voice became flat, cold, and professional. On what grounds? The shift in her tone surprised Karen, who faltered for just a second before her anger surged. On the grounds that I believe this travel document is fraudulent. It is a United States passport, issued by the State Department 5 months ago. It is 100% valid. Scan it again, Serena said, her voice now carrying an authority that didn't match her hoodie. Don't tell me how to do my job, sweetheart, Karen spat. The use of the demeaning term was deliberate. This laminate is clearly tampered with. It's probably peeling. To prove her point, Karen dug her long, sharp fingernail under the corner of the passport's data page. Ma'am, do not do that, Serena ordered. I'm just checking. You are not authorized to... Ipe. It was a small sound, but in the sudden, tense silence at the gate, it sounded like a gunshot. Karen had dug her nail in and pulled. A 1-inch tear had appeared, right at the seam where the photo page was stitched into the binding. It wasn't a full separation, but it was a critical, undeniable, and intentional act of destruction. The blood drained from Serena's face. She stared at the rip. Karen's eyes widened. She had gone too far, and she knew it. But instead of apologizing, she did what all bullies do when cornered. She doubled down. See? Karen said, her voice rising to a shrill pitch. It's falling apart, just as I suspected. A cheap fake. This passport is damaged. It's invalid. You're not flying. Step aside. She threw the passport and boarding pass onto the counter. The line had stopped. Everyone was staring. The man who had been recording the bag argument, a passenger named David Chen, slowly and discreetly panned his phone's camera from his bag to the podium, capturing Serena's face, Karen's sneer, and the mutilated passport. Serena Jenkins didn't move. She didn't raise her voice. She looked at the passport. She looked at Karen Miller. And then she spoke, her voice so cold and quiet it cut through the terminal's hum. I want your supervisor. Now. Mark! Karen yelled, her face red. Get over here! This passenger is being disruptive! Serena corrected her, her voice lethally precise. No, I am not being disruptive. I am a U.S. citizen whose federal travel document you have just willfully destroyed. I want your station manager, your supervisor, and I want the airport police. Mark Thompson scurried over, his face pale and sweaty. What's the problem here, ladies? This woman, Karen spat, pointing at Serena, is refusing to leave the podium. Her passport is damaged, and I denied her boarding, and now she's causing a scene. Mark looked at Serena, then at the passport. He saw the tear. He visibly winced. Oh dear. Ma'am, a damaged passport it's invalid for international travel. Karen is correct. We can't let you board. Serena stared at him. She was giving him a chance, one chance to be a manager. Mr. Thompson, are you asking me what happened, or are you just taking your employee's word? Mark, trapped between a furious passenger and his Dragon Lady employee, took the path of least resistance. He sided with his colleague. Ma'am, it doesn't matter how it happened. The fact is, it's torn. It's out of our hands. Regulations are regulations. I'm afraid you'll have to rebook after you get a new passport. She tore it, Serena said, her voice flat. Your employee, Miss Miller, intentionally tore my passport with her fingernail to prove it was fake. I witnessed it. And so, she motioned behind her. Did he? David Chen, the man with the phone, flinched as all eyes turned to him. "Sir, are you filming?" Mark asked, his voice suddenly indignant, latching onto a new target. "You can't film here. That's a security violation. Stop filming." "I'm filming a customer service interaction," David said, his voice shaky but defiant. "I saw her rip it." "Security!" Mark shouted, waving his hand frantically. "We need security to the gate. We have a disruptive passenger, and another one filming." This was the classic playbook. Create a disturbance, then blame the victim for causing a scene. Serena had seen it documented in a dozen complaints. Now she was living it. "Go ahead and call them, Mark," Serena said, her voice calm. She reached into her pocket, but instead of her phone, she pulled out a small, laminated card. "While you're at it, you should also call Customs and Border Protection. They'll be very interested in this." Mark squinted at the card. It was just a business card for an embassy contact. A prop, but it looked official. He paused. Karen, however, was not pausing. "She's threatening us. She's probably not even a US citizen. I want her arrested. She's interfering with the flight." Two O'Hare Airport police officers, O'Malley and Diaz, arrived, their hands resting on their belts. They were used to gate drama. "What's the situation?" Officer O'Malley asked, his voice weary. "Thank God," Mark said, puffing with relief. "Officer, this passenger," he pointed at Serena, "is refusing to leave the boarding area. Her passport is invalid, and she's become aggressive. She's delaying the flight. We need her removed." "And that man," Karen added, pointing at David, "is filming us. Make him delete it." Officer O'Malley looked at Serena. She didn't look aggressive. She looked still, dangerously still. "Ma'am," O'Malley said, "I'm going to have to ask you to step out of the line. We can discuss this on the side." "I will," Serena said. "But first, I need you to understand what has occurred. Your body cams are on, correct?" Both officers nodded. "Good." Serena pointed to the podium. "This Global Air employee, Karen Miller, has just destroyed my passport. She did it deliberately, in an attempt to deny me boarding based on my appearance." Karen shrieked. "That is a lie. It was already torn. She's playing the race card." "Ma'am, please calm down," Officer Diaz said to Karen. He then looked at Serena. "That's a very serious allegation. You're accusing her of a federal crime." "Yes, I am," Serena said. 18 U.S. Code, Section 1543, forgery or false use of passport. And I am accusing this manager, Mark Thompson, of being complicit in her actions by refusing to investigate and instead attempting to have me removed." Mark Thompson's jaw dropped. "Complicit? I've done nothing. I'm just following the rules." "You're following her rules," Serena said. She turned back to Officer O'Malley. "Officer, I need to see your supervisor, and I need you to detain Ms. Miller." O'Malley's patience snapped. "Detain her?" "Ma'am, you're the one being disruptive. You have a damaged passport, you're making accusations, and you're holding up a flight to London. You have two choices. You can walk away from this gate and file a complaint later, or I will arrest you for disorderly conduct. Now, what's it going to be?" The entire gate area was silent. Karen Miller had a smug, triumphant smile on her face. She had won. Serena Jenkins looked at the officer. She looked at Mark. She looked at Karen. She had given them every chance to de-escalate, to do the right thing. They had chosen, at every step, to escalate, to lie, and to abuse their power. "Okay," Serena said softly. "I see. You've all made your choice." She reached into her jogger's deep pocket, the one she hadn't touched yet. She pulled out a black leather wallet. It didn't contain a driver's license. She flipped it open. The wallet contained a gold-plated badge and a set of credentials. The credentials clearly read, United States of America, Department of Transportation, Federal Aviation Administration, Serena M. Jenkins, Regional Director, Office of Compliance and Enforcement. Serena held the badge up, not to the officers, but to Mark Thompson. "Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice dropping all pretense, resonating with pure, ice-cold command. "My name is Serena Jenkins. I am the Regional Director of Compliance for the Federal Aviation Administration. This was a covert audit of Global Air's operations at O'Hare, in response to 114 formal complaints of discrimination and misconduct filed against this station, many of which name your employee, Ms. Miller, personally." The silence was absolute. Karen Miller's smug smile didn't just fade, it collapsed. Her face turned the color of drywall. Mark Thompson began to shake. I don't... "This audit," Serena continued, her eyes drilling into him, "is now an active federal investigation. Officer O'Malley, Officer Diaz." She turned to the cops, who were frozen in shock. "I am a federal officer, and I am now identifying myself to you." The officers' entire demeanor changed. Their hands came off their belts. Their postures straightened. They were no longer dealing with a disruptive passenger. They were dealing with a director. "Ma'am," O'Malley said, his voice suddenly respectful. What do you need?" "First," Serena said, "you will detain Ms. Karen Miller for questioning. She has willfully destroyed federal property, my passport, and has interfered with a federal investigation. That's 18 U.S. Code, Section 1543. She is not to touch that computer, her phone, or anything else." You can't," Karen whispered, her voice trembling. It was an accident." "It was not," Serena stated, "and we have it on video." She nodded to David Chen. "Sir, thank you for your civic duty. Please stop recording. Your video is now evidence in a federal investigation. Do not delete it. Do not post it. Officer Diaz, please take Mr. Chen's full contact information. We will be subpoenaing that footage." David, looking both terrified and vindicated, nodded and powered down his phone. Serena turned back to the shaking supervisor. "Mr. Thompson, you are to shut this gate down. Now." "Shut it down?" he squeaked. "The flight. It's a 707 to London. It's full. I can't—" "You seem to be confused," Serena said. "That was not a request. This is now an active FAA investigation scene. This flight is not going anywhere. The entire crew, ground and air, are grounded. They will all need to be interviewed. You will personally secure all CCTV footage from this gate and the surrounding area for the last 3 hours. You will secure all employee logs, and you will find me an office. Now." I need to call my station manager," Mark stammered, pulling at his collar. "You'll call him," Serena said. "But first, you'll call my contact." She pulled another card from her pocket. "Robert Stone, O'Hare's Director of Airport Operations. Tell him Director Jenkins has invoked a Code Red compliance audit at Gate B12 and that his presence is required immediately." Mark's blood ran cold. Calling his own manager was bad. Calling Robert Stone, the man who ran the entire airport, was a career-ending catastrophe. "Do it," Serena ordered. As Mark fumbled with his phone, his hands shaking so badly he could barely dial, Officer O'Malley stepped toward a hyperventilating Karen Miller. "Ma'am, I need you to come with us, please. You need to put your hands behind your back." No. This is a mistake. Mark. Tell them it was an accident. I thought it was fake," Karen pleaded, tears of pure, unadulterated panic streaming down her face. "You can tell your story downtown," O'Malley said. his voice now devoid of any sympathy. He clipped the handcuffs onto her wrists. The passengers, who had been watching in stunned silence, erupted. A few people started to clap. Karen Miller, the woman who held the power of God at Gate B12, the woman who could ruin a person's day with a single sneer, was led away in handcuffs, weeping, past the very people she had terrorized. The karma had just begun to hit, and Serena Jenkins was just getting started. The atmosphere at Gate B12 transformed from a simple boarding area into the epicenter of a crisis. The delayed sign flashed on the monitor, causing a collective groan from the 200-plus passengers, but no one dared complain. They had all just witnessed a corporate execution. Mark Thompson, who looked like he was about to faint, was on the phone, his voice a pathetic squeak. "Yes, Mr. Stone." "Yes, sir. I understand, sir. She's right here." He held the phone out to Serena as if it were a venomous snake. Serena took it. "Rob, it's Serena." "Yes, it's escalated. I need you, and I need the red team from Global Air's corporate office, not the local station manager. I want their head of North American operations. Get him on a plane. I don't care where he is." She listened. "Because, Rob, I'm shutting down their London route out of ORD until I'm satisfied. Yes, I'm serious. I'll see you in 5. She handed the phone back to a ghostly white Mark. Within minutes, a whirlwind of new figures descended on the gate. Robert Stone, the airport operations director, arrived first. He was a tall, imposing man in a pristine suit, and his face was thunderous. He didn't even look at Mark. He walked straight to Serena. "Serena, what in the hell happened? My phone is blowing up." "What happened, Rob, is that Global Air's systemic issue just became a federal crime. Your gate agent, Karen Miller, willfully destroyed my passport." Stone's face, already grim, darkened. "Destroyed it?" "Not damaged. Destroyed. Ripped it, with her fingernail. Because I look like this," Serena said, gesturing to her hoodie and her skin. "Then her supervisor, Mr. Thompson, tried to have me arrested for disorderly conduct when I objected." Robert Stone turned his head, his gaze landing on Mark Thompson for the first time. It was a look of such profound contempt that Mark physically recoiled. "Mark," Stone said, his voice terrifyingly low, "you have 5 seconds to get to the station manager's office and wait for me. Do not talk to anyone. Do not touch a computer. Do not pass. Go. Move." Mark Thompson, utterly broken, practically ran from the gate. "Now," Stone said to Serena. "What do you need?" "I've grounded the flight," Serena said. "I need this aircraft's crew, pilots and flight attendants, deplaned and brought to a secure area for interviews. I want to know what they see from the ground crew on a daily basis. I've sent Officers O'Malley and Diaz with Ms. Miller for processing, and I've secured the witness, David Chen, and his video." "Done." Stone was already firing off texts on his phone. "The passengers? They are material witnesses. We need to rebook them, obviously. But I want a statement form distributed. Anyone who saw or heard the interaction, I want their story." She pointed to the Global Air podium. "And I want this entire podium, terminal, and all employee files locked down. This is a crime scene." "Global's local station manager is on his way," Stone said. "Good. He can bring me coffee," Serena said dismissively. "The real conversation will be with his boss." A new player arrived, a flustered man in a cheap suit, his Global Air lanyard flapping. This was the local station manager, Bill. "Director Jenkins, Mr. Stone, I just heard, I can't believe, Karen, she's a 20-year employee. This must be a misunderstanding." Serena just looked at him. "Mr. Bill, Your 20-year employee just assaulted a federal officer and is on video using discriminatory language. Your supervisor, Mark Thompson, was complicit in the act and in the attempted cover-up. This misunderstanding is going to cost your company millions of dollars before sunrise, so I suggest you stop defending your staff and start cooperating. My first order: I want the complete, unedited personnel files for Karen Miller and Mark Thompson. I want every complaint, every commendation, every performance review. On my desk. 10 minutes ago. Bill's face went pale. I'll have to call HR. Call them, Stone barked. Or Director Jenkins can call the U.S. Attorney and they can come with a warrant. Which do you prefer? Bill vanished. Serena, Stone, and a team of airport security relocated to the airport's Central Command Center, a high-tech room full of monitors. Serena had grabbed her carry-on. In the privacy of an office, she shed the student disguise. Off came the hoodie and joggers. On went the crisp trousers, sharp blouse, and blazer she had packed for this exact contingency. When she re-emerged, she was no longer Serena the passenger. She was Director Jenkins, and she was in charge. Pull up the CCTV from B12, all angles, she ordered the tech. The footage appeared on the main screen. It was crystal clear, high definition, but it had no audio. They watched the entire interaction. They saw Karen's dismissive body language. They saw her snatch the passport. They saw her talking, her face twisting in anger. And then they saw it. It was undeniable. It wasn't a fumble. It wasn't an accident. The camera angle from above the podium clearly caught Karen Miller, hooking her finger under the page and yanking it. It was a clear, deliberate, malicious act of destruction. My God, Robert Stone whispered. She did it on purpose. Yes, Serena said, her voice tight. She did. Now, let's cross-reference that with the audio from my phone. She had already uploaded the file. The tech synced it with the video. Now, they had the full, damning picture. They heard Karen's voice, tinny but clear. You people are always getting such good fakes. They heard Serena's warning. Mom, do not do that. They heard the rip, and they heard Karen's cruel, lying justification. See, it's falling apart, just as I suspected. And then, the worst part. Mark Thompson's weak, complicit voice. Ma'am, it doesn't matter how it happened. That's it, Stone said, his face carved from granite. He's done. They're both done. Today. Oh, we're not done, Rob, Serena said, her eyes fixed on the screen. We are just getting started. Get me those personnel files. I want to see just how deep this rot goes. The personnel files for Karen Miller and Mark Thompson arrived, delivered by the trembling hands of the station manager. Serena took them into a conference room, alone. For an hour she read, and with every page her cold anger solidified into a quiet, calculated fury. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was a pattern. Karen Miller's file was a tapestry of minor infractions, all with a disturbingly common theme. Passenger complaint. Agent was hostile, accused me of not speaking English properly. Passenger was a Spanish surgeon. Passenger complaint. Agent forced me to pay $100 for my carry-on, while the white passenger in front of me had an identical bag and was not charged. Passenger complaint. Agent K. Miller made comments about my smelly food, a passenger carrying traditional Indian cuisine. Passenger complaint. Agent was verbally abusive, called me boy, and threatened to have me arrested when I asked for her name. Passenger was a black teenager. There were 14 such complaints in 5 years, and after every single one, the resolution section was identical. Resolution. Spoke with Agent Miller. Agent states passenger was non-compliant and aggressive. Agent followed all Global Air protocols. Manager M. Thompson concurs. Case closed. Every single time. Mark Thompson had not just ignored Karen's behavior. He had actively enabled and protected it. He was the wall that prevented any accountability. He signed his name, complaint after complaint, burying the evidence of her bigotry under a pile of corporate jargon. Serena's investigation expanded. She and Stone's team spent the next 4 hours interviewing the rest of the gate crew and the flight crew from GA 901. A flight attendant, who initially was defensive, broke down once Serena assured her she had whistleblower protection. "Everyone knows about Karen," the flight attendant whispered. "We call her Gatekeeper Karen. We dread the London flight when she's on. She always finds someone to pick on. Always. Usually they're, not white. We've told Mark, we've told Bill. They just say, Karen's old school, or she's just stressed. But it's malice. We all know it." The co-pilot was even more blunt. "She's a liability. We've had flights delayed before because she gets into it with passengers. But her husband is like a regional VP for the baggage handlers union or something. Everyone's afraid to really cross her. And Mark's just a jellyfish. He does whatever she says." This was the real-life story. It wasn't a single bad apple. It was a rotten orchard, protected by a weak manager and a corporate culture that prioritized closing complaints over solving them. At 1:10 a.m., a contingent of pale, exhausted-looking executives from Global Air's corporate headquarters in Atlanta arrived, having been scrambled onto an emergency charter. They were led by James Harrison, the executive VP of North American Operations. They were ushered into the conference room. Serena was there. Robert Stone was there. And on a large video screen, Director Holloway, Serena's boss from D.C., was there, looking like a displeased Roman emperor. "Mr. Harrison," Serena began, not bothering with pleasantries. "Welcome to Chicago." "Director Jenkins, Director Holloway," Harrison stammered. "This is a nightmare. An absolute, isolated, horrific incident. I've come to personally apologize. Ms. Miller and Mr. Thompson have been terminated, effective immediately. Their behavior is not, I repeat, not representative of Global Air." Serena held up a hand. The gesture was so sharp, Harrison stopped mid-sentence. "Mr. Harrison, stop reading your PR script. This was not isolated. I have here," she pushed the stack of 14 complaints across the table, "a documented 5-year pattern of targeted harassment by Ms. Miller, which was actively and repeatedly covered up by Mr. Thompson. Your local management," she nodded at Bill, who was standing in the corner, "knew. Your flight crews knew. You want to tell me this isn't representative? It's systemic." She then played the video, the high-definition footage, coupled with the crystal-clear audio. The executives watched. They saw the rip. They heard, "You people." They heard Mark's dismissal. James Harrison's face went from pale to green. He was a numbers man. He wasn't seeing a passenger. He was seeing a stock price plummet. He was seeing a PR fire that would burn for months. "Director Holloway," Serena said, turning to the video screen, "I have my recommendation." "Proceed, Director," Holloway's voice boomed. "1," Serena said, "Global Air will be facing an FAA civil penalty. My office will recommend the maximum fine for every single violation we've uncovered, starting with the 114 original complaints and ending with the willful destruction of a federal officer's travel documents. We're projecting that fine to be in the range of $15.5 million. Harrison choked. 15 million. "That's the starting point," Serena said. 2. Global Air will ground all customer-facing staff at O'Hare, all of them, for a mandatory 1-week anti-bias and de-escalation retraining program. That program will be designed and overseen by my office. You will not fly a single plane out of this hub until I personally sign off on it. The color drained from Harrison's face. Grounding O'Hare? That was financial ruin. 3, Serena continued. You will conduct a top-to-bottom audit of all passenger complaints at all your hubs, nationwide, for the last 3 years. You will look for signatures like Mark Thompson's, managers who rubber-stamp dismissals, and you will clean house. I want a report on my desk in 30 days. Director, I'm not finished, Serena said. 4. You will publicly apologize. Not a vague, "We are sorry for the incident" press release. You will name Miss Miller. You will name Mr. Thompson, and you will state exactly what they did: targeted, discriminatory harassment, and abuse of power. And finally, you will compensate every single passenger on flight GA 901 tonight. A full refund and a $10,000 voucher for future travel. They were witnesses to your company's failure. The room was silent. The executives were stunned. This wasn't a slap on the wrist. This was a public execution. And Mr. Harrison, Serena said, her voice quiet, this is the non-negotiable part. If you balk, if you try to fight this, my office will release the video from my phone and David Chen's phone, which we are now acquiring with a warrant, to every news outlet in the country. And the Department of Justice will be opening a full-scale civil rights investigation into Global Air by breakfast. Are we clear? James Harrison looked at Serena's face. He saw no bluff. He looked at Holloway on the screen, who was nodding in agreement. He was trapped. The karma had come due. Crystal, Harrison whispered, his voice hoarse. Crystal clear, Director. The events at Gate B12 did not end when Karen Miller was led away in handcuffs. That moment was not a conclusion, it was a detonation. In the hours, days, and months that followed, the shockwave from that single, vicious tear of a passport radiated outward, a hard lesson in karma that was felt from the sterile floors of a county jail to the polished wood tables of a corporate boardroom. For Karen Miller, the night that began with an arrogant display of power ended in a fluorescent-lit holding cell, smelling of bleach and despair. The adrenaline of her rage had long since evaporated, leaving behind a cold, clammy terror. She was no longer Gatekeeper Karen, the petty tyrant of Terminal 5. She was just inmate 72749B. Her first taste of her new reality came at 4 a.m. A weary, court-appointed lawyer, not the high-powered union attorney she had demanded, rapped on the bars. Karen Miller, I'm Mr. Davies, the baggage handlers union. Your husband. They aren't sending their legal team. This is outside their scope. My husband, he's a VP, Karen cried, her voice raw. He's a regional VP for a local union, Ma'am. You've been charged with assaulting a federal officer and willful destruction of a United States passport. That's federal. They can't touch this. Neither can Global Air's lawyers. In fact, he consulted his flimsy notepad. I have a message here from Global Air. Your employment is terminated, effective 10:30 p.m. last night, for gross misconduct and criminal activity. The union. They won't be fighting the termination. They've seen the video. The words hit her like a physical blow. No job. No union protection. The video? It was her word against mine. Ma'am, the lawyer sighed. It's not. There are 2 videos. One from another passenger, which is very clear, and another from Director Jenkins's own phone, which has pristine audio. The audio, it's what's crucifying you. You people are always getting such good fakes. That one line turned this from a property crime into a federal hate crime investigation. The U.S. Attorney's Office is taking this personally. Her arraignment was a public humiliation. She was led into the courtroom in an ill-fitting orange jumpsuit, her wrists cuffed. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Judge Ann Walsh, had already reviewed the evidence. "Ms. Miller," the judge said, her voice devoid of sympathy as she peered over her glasses, "you are charged with 18 U.S. Code Section 1543, willful destruction of a passport, 18 U.S. Code Section 111, assaulting or impeding a federal officer, and the U.S. Attorney's Office has filed an enhancement for a violation under 18 U.S. Code Section 249, the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act." "Hate crime?" Karen whispered, horrified. I didn't. Your specific, targeted language, you people, directed at the victim based on her race, which is clearly audible on the recording, is the basis for that charge," the prosecutor, a sharp young man from the Civil Rights Division, stated. "The government will argue that the destruction of the passport was an act of malice, motivated by racial animus." The judge set bail at $100,000. "And as a condition of your release, Ms. Miller, should you make bail," she added, with a cutting, deliberate irony, "you are to surrender your passport to the court." Karen's life unraveled. Her husband, facing intense pressure from his own union members, who were furious about the bad press she had brought on all airport employees, posted her bail but was cold and distant. "You've ruined us, Karen," he'd said, not in anger, but in a flat, dead tone. "My own guys, they won't even look at me. They're calling you Passport Karen." She was a pariah. Her neighbors, who had seen the news vans camped on their street, crossed the road to avoid her. She was unemployable. No company would touch her. Faced with the mountain of undeniable video and audio evidence and the prospect of a 10-year prison sentence, her legal team advised her to take a plea. 6 months later, Karen Miller, weeping, pleaded guilty to the destruction of federal property and 1 count of felony intimidation. She was sentenced to 2 years in a low-security federal prison, 5 years of probation, and 2,000 hours of community service, which the judge specifically directed must be served at a refugee and immigrant resettlement center. The gatekeeper was going to spend the next several years helping people who looked just like the ones she had spent 20 years tormenting. For Global Air, the consequences were not measured in prison time, but in dollars, and the final bill was astronomical. Mark Thompson's fate was sealed before Serena had even left the airport. His termination notice for gross negligence, failure to supervise, and complicity in policy violation was waiting in his inbox by 2:00 a.m. He was fired for cause, wiping out his 15-year pension and all benefits. But his nightmare was just beginning. He wasn't just unemployed, he was a pariah in the industry, the man whose name was a byword for weak, complicit management. Then came the lawsuit. The 14 other passengers, whose complaints Serena had unearthed, were contacted by a high-profile civil rights law firm. They filed a class action lawsuit against Global Air, naming not just the company, but Mark Thompson personally as a co-conspirator in a pattern and practice of racial discrimination. Mark was ruined. He had to sell his house to pay his legal fees. He was last seen working the register at a suburban hardware store, his name and face forever tied to the most infamous customer service failure in aviation history. Station manager Bill was also terminated. He was seen as the emblem of the rot Serena had identified, the management layer that knew about the problem and chose to look the other way. James Harrison, the EVP from Atlanta, cleaned house. The entire management team at the O'Hare hub was fired in a single, brutal email, and a new team was flown in from a better-performing hub. But the real pain was financial. The FAA, with Director Holloway's full backing, made an example of Global Air. The $15.5 million fine was just the beginning. For the willful destruction of a passport and interference with a federal officer. $100,000 for each of the 14 buried complaints, a new precedent for managerial negligence. A massive, fleet-wide fine for systemic compliance failures in their anti-discrimination training, which Serena's audit proved was just a 15-minute click-through video. Then came the grounding. For 1 full week, Global Air's entire O'Hare operation, one of their most profitable hubs, was shut down for the mandatory FAA-overseen retraining. The cost was staggering. It wasn't just the $50 million in lost ticket revenue. It was the catastrophic, cascading logistical failure. They had to pay to rebook over 100,000 passengers onto other airlines, including their bitter rivals, American and United, at full, last-minute fares. Over 20,000 stranded passengers required hotel rooms and food vouchers, costing millions. The cancelled London flight, GA901, and every other flight to Europe that week triggered the European Union's stringent passenger rights laws. Global Air was forced to pay €600 in cash to every single passenger booked on those flights, in addition to their refunds. The stock price, which had tanked 34% in a single day, stayed down. Wall Street and the public had lost faith. In total, the Karen Miller incident cost Global Air an estimated $1.2 billion in fines, lost revenue, and market capitalization, all because one woman hated her job and her boss was too weak to stop her. The story exploded. David Chen's video, paired with the official audio from Serena's phone, which the FAA strategically released, became the most watched news clip of the year. Gatekeeper Karen became a global meme, a punchline on Saturday Night Live, and the subject of a dozen top 10 instant karma YouTube videos. But for the real victims, the karma was far more personal. The 114 original complainants, the ones who had been dismissed and ignored, were suddenly a top priority. A new Passenger Justice Task Force, created by James Harrison, contacted every one of them. The black teenager who had been called Boy received a personal, written apology from Harrison himself, a full refund for his entire family's trip, $50,000 in damages, and a fully funded 4-year college scholarship to the university of his choice. The Indian couple, whom Serena had watched Karen abuse, were given first-class tickets to visit their family, and the airline made a $100,000 donation to their preferred charity. The real-life change, however, was the retraining. It was not a 15-minute video. It was an intense, week-long program designed by a team of psychologists, de-escalation experts, and civil rights leaders, personally vetted by Serena. Serena herself was not present, but she watched on a closed-circuit feed. She saw the new trainers using the footage of Karen Miller as the primary training tool. "This," the trainer said, freezing the video on Karen's sneering face, "is the conflict loop. She feels disrespected, so she exerts power. The passenger objects, which she perceives as aggression, so she escalates. Her only goal is to win the interaction. Your goal is never to win. Your goal is to solve." They role-played. A new agent was faced with a simulation. An actor playing a passenger was yelling about a bag. "Sir, you can't talk to me that way," the agent snapped. "Wrong," the trainer yelled. "You just entered the loop. You just became Karen. You're fired. Next." Another agent stepped up. "Sir, I can see you're frustrated, and I apologize. That bag is unfortunately too big, but I have a solution. I can check it for you right here for free. And because of the trouble, I'm adding a $50 drink voucher to your file for your flight. My name is Alex. Let me help you fix this." The actor, disarmed, nodded. "That," the trainer said, is the de-escalation ladder. That is the new global airway. Solve the problem, not the person. 6 months passed. The media frenzy died down. Global Air, humbled and billions of dollars poorer, was slowly rebuilding its reputation under a new Passengers First campaign. Serena Jenkins was at O'Hare. It was another Tuesday, another 6 p.m. flight to London. She was in a disguise. This time, a different college hoodie, different joggers. She was doing a quiet, unannounced follow-up. She walked up to gate B12. The gate itself was different. The high, imposing podium was gone, replaced with lower, more open desks that allowed agents to be at eye level with passengers. A young agent, a woman in her 20s, looked up and smiled. "Hi there. Ready for your flight?" Serena, playing the part, fumbled with her carry-on, accidentally dropping her passport onto the floor. "Oh no, I'm so sorry." She braced herself. The old Karen would have sighed, rolled her eyes, or tapped her acrylic nails. This new agent, whose tag read Maria, didn't. She stepped out from behind the desk, picked up the passport, and handed it back to Serena with a warm, genuine smile. "Hey, no problem at all. Take your time. We've got plenty of it." Deep breath. Serena looked up, genuinely surprised. "Thank you." "Of course," Maria said. She scanned the passport. It beeped. "London. I'm so jealous, it's my favorite city. Have a wonderful, wonderful flight, Miss Jenkins." You too," Serena said, her voice catching for a second. She walked down the jet bridge, her carry-on rolling behind her. The small act of kindness, the simple, profound decency of it, felt like a victory more significant than the $1.2 billion fine. Serena found her seat by the window. As the plane pushed back from the gate, she pulled out her phone. She didn't have to write a long report. She sent a single text to Director Holloway in DC ORD B12. "Cleared. The system works." She put her phone away, leaned her head against the window, and as the plane climbed into the night sky, she allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. The ripple effect had been devastating. But what had grown back in its place was, for the first time, better. The work was never truly over, but this battle, this one was won. And that's how one act of pure, spiteful prejudice brought an entire airline to its knees. Karen Miller thought she had all the power, but she picked on the one person who could, and did, burn the whole system down to fix it. This story is a powerful reminder that the person you underestimate, the person you dismiss, might just be the one holding all the cards. The karma was real, it was hard, and it was so satisfying. What did you think of Serena's reveal? Was the $15.5 million fine enough? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you loved this story of justice and hard karma, please make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Share this video with someone who needs to see a bully get what they deserve. And most importantly, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and ring that bell so you never miss another story of real-life drama and ultimate revenge. Thanks for listening.